Hi guys, it's Romina. Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a troubleshooting on nail stamping. So if you have a hard time picking up your design, don't worry, this video is for you. I'll be doing several tests to show you all the factors involved in a good pickup. So if you like it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and let's get started. So why the stamper doesn't pick up the design? In my opinion, it could be because you're using a defective product, which is extremely rare. It could be cleaning issues, or it could be the technique execution, which is the most common issue, and we're going to look at it in this video. We're going to start by reviewing the correct technique. I apply 1 or 2 strokes of the nail polish, enough to cover half of the design. Then I scrape out the excess with my scraper, and then I roll the stamper over the design, and this is what I call a good pickup. And this is what I'm going to use to compare it as a reference with the other test. So what happens when you do the correct technique but you do it over a dirty plate? That means not cleaning up between uses. And to be honest, I've done this before and I could get away with 2 or 3 times if the design is easy enough. But in this time, just with 1 time, here's what it looks like. It's not that bad. It really has some details here and there, but I could totally live with this. Then what happens if we wait too long before scraping? You start by applying your polish, everything is great until now, you're doing it great, but you grab your stamper and you realize that it's not clean and you're supposed to work with clean materials, right? So you take your time, you clean up your material with some acetone, and by the time you get to the scraping part, you realize that the polish didn't cover the whole design. And why is that? Because the polish was already dried. So it will look something like this and it doesn't look good. That's why it's important you have your materials prepared in advance and clean. Now what happens if we wait too long between scraping and stamping? You apply your polish in a good speed, everything okay, you scrape out the excess as you're supposed to, but by the time you get your stamper you realize it's not clean enough. And you take your time, you use the lint roller, the scotch tape, and as a beginner would do, you try to figure out in which position you're gonna roll the stamper, and this is what you could get. So the design is not complete, there are missing parts, and the lines are not complete, so this is why you need to work as fast as possible. Then what happens if we combine the 2 previous options? So you do everything too slow, you're applying your polish, you're taking the time, you're doing it too slow, you cover half of the design and you take your time to close the polish. I don't really do the part, I only place the cap on top of the polish and I close it after I finish all the process. Then you take your time to clean up your scraper, and by the time you scrape out, you do it really slow and it's getting a little bit difficult to do it because the polish is already dry. And then you grab your stamper and you clean it up, you take your time, and by the time you roll it, you're gonna get this. This is the worst pickup so far, and it's actually not even a third of the image, or I guess it could be a third, but it's really bad. You can see here's the original, and that only happened because you were working too slow. Then what happens if we scrape too many times? As I show you in the first part of the correct technique, you should scrape once or twice only. But now if you scrape too many times, but if you do it faster, you still could get away with a pickup, but it's not gonna be the best, and you're gonna take all of the polish out of the image, but also it will get dry faster. So here's what it looks like. It's not really that bad. It's still the complete design, but you can see a lot of parts missing and the lines are not as in the original. Then what happens if you scrape too many times and you work too slow? You could be applying the polish in normal speed, but by the time you get to the scraping part, if you do it too slow, the polish is gonna start getting dry and the pickup is gonna be more difficult. If you change directions and you start scraping out the other way, you're gonna still be drying up the polish. So by the time maybe that you get to the stamper, you haven't cleaned it, so you do that, and then when finally you can get the pickup, this is what you're gonna get. And this is, I think, the worst so far. So it's very important that you work fast and you scrape only once or twice. Now what happens if we have a good timing but we're pressing the stamper too hard against the plate? You might have a good timing in the first part of the technique, but after, if you place the stamper and you press it too hard against the plate, it's not gonna pick up the design. So it's important that you work with the stamper very gently. You just have to roll it, or even you can press it against the plate, but it has to be very gently. And here's what it looks like. So we got several missing lines overall in this part, and it doesn't look good. Now what happens if we combine the two previous ones? That means we wait too long between scraping and stamping, but we also press too hard against the plate. We're doing the first part correctly, but maybe we take too long cleaning our materials, our stamper and our scraper, just to make sure that they're perfect, but then we press too hard. So this is not even fast, it's just you're taking too long and you're doing it with too much pressure. So this is where you could get, this is actually the worst pickup so far. You almost got nothing. Now what happens if we do the rolling motion but it's just too slow? We can have the perfect timing in the first part of the technique. We scrape once or twice, our design is going super well, but then maybe in an effort to try to pick every single line of the design, you're doing it super slow just to make sure that you're gonna get all the lines in your stamper, but it actually what you get is this, not a good pickup. And you can see that the lines are very thin, the design is not complete, and it doesn't look good. So it's important that the rolling and the other parts, you do it as fast as possible. Now what happens if we don't use enough polish? As I told you in the first part, what I do is just 1 or 2 strokes, enough to cover half of the design, and now I'm just applying one very thin stroke, and you can see that it's not enough polish to cover all the design. So even if you work fast, if you do the rolling motion, you're gonna get something like this. Some of the parts of the designs are not gonna get filled with the polish. Now it's possible that we can do the correct technique with regular polishes and get the same result. It is. You can actually check out my previous video. I did a lot of tests with regular polishes just to show you that if you do the correct technique, it's always possible. Here I just wanted to do it to show you the same design that I was using before. Now if you tried everything and nothing works, I would recommend you to wash the head of your stamper with dish soap and warm water. This is actually how some companies recommend you to prime your stampers. I really don't prime anything. I just use it out of the box, but I did this technique once because the stamper was too oily. Most of the time, if you're doing a good technique, you're not gonna need to prime anything. So what about buffing? This is basically buffing up the surface of your stamper with a nail file, but you're gonna get this aspect. It's gonna get cloudy, so you're gonna lose the function of a clear stamper, and it's gonna be very hard to work if you're a beginner. You're also gonna get some micro tears in the silicone, so I wouldn't recommend you this technique. I cannot deny that you're gonna get a good pickup, and I still use it for powders, pigments, or full nail patterns, but you have to consider this. So here are all the stamps that we did in this video. Let me know in the comments which one is the most similar to the pickup that you're getting, and what are you doing wrong. If you could identify what part of the process you're not doing correctly, it will be so much easier to improve it. So don't get discouraged. You can see that I'm using the same stamping and the same nail polish, so the only thing that varies is the technique. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!